Well, thanks again for having me. Thanks to all the sponsoring organizations and everybody who put in all the logistical effort. It's very much appreciated. Tonight I'm going to give you what the Leadership Institute wants you to get, which is an alternative view of issues in the news. Normally, you hear, in my opinion, you hear one set of drones debating another set of drones on the cable news channels. And one set of drones says the way out of the problem is to, have a stimulus package, fiscal stimulus package, and blow $800 billion on totally arbitrary things, and that'll make us wealthy. And then the other set of drones says, no, the more important thing is just to print up money out of thin air and just spend that, and that ought to jumpstart things. So that's it. That's the big debate you're allowed to have. Which insane juvenile policy should we adopt? You can pick this one or that one. But a third option, that both of these things are lunacy and are going to make things worse, is completely excluded, very difficult to find. But it happens to be true, and it makes perfect sense. So tonight I'm going to talk about this, and I'm going to be building on, of course, what's in my book, Meltdown, which has had some success, and I'm very glad about that. But specifically tonight, I want to focus on one issue that you'll find in the book and in a lot of my writing, and that I think is at the center of this whole crisis. And that if you want to be informed about it, and again, not just absorb what the drones are telling you, it's something you need to know. So I could start off talking about Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac, and I could talk about the Community Reinvestment Act. And these factors, which did play a role in the breakdown we're seeing, these factors get mentioned all the time, particularly in right-of-center political circles, and to a certain extent that's all well and good, and they do bear a share of the blame. At the same time, the British don't have a Fannie and Freddie, as far as I know. They didn't have a Community Reinvestment Act, and they also have a housing bust. So these can't be absolutely necessary to account for what happened. So I don't want to focus on those, although I do mention them in my writing. I want to focus on another factor, and this is a factor that when most Americans hear about it, they immediately, their eyes glaze over. They think, oh, no, this is too complicated, I can never possibly understand it, I better just leave this to the experts. And I'm talking about the Federal Reserve System. Now, I think most Americans, they hear Federal Reserve System, and again, they don't know what this thing is, what it does, or they don't understand any of the lingo. And you can hardly blame them. Nobody really talks about it except on business networks. And what they say about it on the business network should be better off not knowing anything about it. Along the lines of what Thomas Jefferson said, that speaking of his day, he said, you would be more knowledgeable if you read no newspaper whatsoever than if you read the newspapers that existed in his day. So in effect, it would be better for you not to have heard the conventional wisdom about the Fed. Well, let me first start with the conventional wisdom about the economy, which is that the free market has failed, and that the collapse we've observed is just evidence of that the free market is really just a stupid system that a bunch of simpletons believe in, but we sophisticates understand that we can't have a free market. Instead, this crisis proves that our wise overlords need more powers in order to steer our ship of state through this terrible ordeal. That's the conventional wisdom. It's everywhere. It's everywhere. In fact, Harvard University, about a month ago, sponsored a conference, and the psychology department played a role in this. And I'm not making this up. I wrote an article about this on LouRockwell.com. They sponsored a conference, and the premise of the conference was, okay, well, we all know the free market is stupid, it doesn't work. So what could possibly be the reasons that the stupid groups still seem to support it? And so they were going to spin out all these psychological theories as to why people would still believe in this. I mean, the arrogance of these people is just unbelievable. I mean, I wonder if they're going to have a conference about why people still believe in Keynesianism when it's been refuted empirically again and again and again. I mean, maybe that would be interesting. Why do people still believe in that? But maybe they'll have that at next year's conference. I'm not going to hold my breath. Well, okay, so let's talk about this Federal Reserve System. Now, and again, a lot of times when people hear Federal Reserve, they're inclined to think that anybody who talks about the Fed is probably, some kind of crank. There's probably something the matter with him. And the reason people are inclined to think that is that some people who talk about the Fed are a little crankish. I mean, there's no question about that. But the vast bulk of people who are interested in this subject are, in fact, quite knowledgeable. And it should disturb us that the subject of the Federal Reserve System, which controls monetary policy in the United States, is really off the table politically. I mean, up until Ron Paul in 2008, this was not an issue since the Fed's creation in 1913. It did not come up in any presidential election for nearly 100 years. And so we've got an institution whose chairman, who's now Ben Bernanke, has the power to create trillions of dollars out of thin air and then not even tell us where it's going. Such that the financial network Bloomberg actually is suing the Federal Reserve to order it to turn over this information. And the Fed is stonewalling, saying, no, 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 we don't want to do that. Isn't this sort of interesting and newsworthy? Not a word. No presidential candidate mentions it. It's not on the table. It's never a political issue. The implication is we're all a bunch of stupid peons who really have no business sticking our noses into what our experts are up to. But now, suddenly, there is some attention being paid to the Fed. Ron Paul has a bill, H.R. 1207, that, last I checked, had 179 co-sponsors. And the bill seeks to audit the Fed. Now, I rather suspected that some people in this room were aware of this bill. Well, what they're really proposing is that we ought to have the power to sort of poke around this institution, see what it's up to, see where the money is going, see what they've been doing. Everybody around the world knows that the Fed's accounting practices are, to put it mildly, highly irregular. An audit of this thing would be devastating. I would love to hear, though, what the arguments are against auditing the Fed. What would the argument against it be? I mean, the argument against it, the only argument I could see somebody making would be, you know what, this institution that can create money out of thin air, spend it, and not tell us where it went, you know, I don't see why we need to audit that. I think the institution that creates our money should be totally secretive. I mean, like, who would say that? Like, what normal person would say that, other than the Fed chairman himself or his family? I mean, a regular American I'm talking about. Who wouldn't think this is worth looking into? But as I say, this has been off the table for almost 100 years. In the 19th century, people used to actually talk about the monetary system. People used to debate, should we have gold, should we have silver, should we have greenbacks? They actually were under the impression that they were entitled to an opinion on the subject. But in the 20th century, no mention. Because, of course, when you've reached perfection, I suppose, why should you even raise the subject? You know, the Federal Reserve is such the epitome of perfection. It was, after all, 16 good years we had before they gave us the Great Depression. So, I mean, what are we complaining about? We did have 16 relatively good years. So let's talk about this. What is the Fed's function? Well, there are two main things that it is intended to do, was intended to do from the start. And the first is to act as a lender of last resort to help financial institutions in trouble. Well, as we've seen, it knows very well how to perform that function. So that's one thing. Now, one might ask the question, although this raises much larger issues that we don't have time to get into here, if the banking system were being run on sound principles, why would you need a lender of last resort? The shellfish industry doesn't have a lender of last resort. The movie production industry doesn't have a lender of last resort. Well, what is it about the banking industry that is so fragile that it needs to have a government-established monopoly institution like the Fed